This is State Representative Todd Stephens. I'm here with Montgomery Township Police Chief Scott Bendig. Chief, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. You know, one of the things that has occurred to me over the last several weeks, I know a lot of people are dealing with really stressful situations in their own homes and their own lives, and they might be out of work and dealing with kids at home from school and all that. But, you know, with all that focus on everything that, you know, understandably they've got going on their own, they might not understand all that else is going on in our communities. And so one of the things I wanted to do is get some folks like you who are on the front lines every day serving our community, making sure that we're all safe, and, you know, give the residents of Montgomery Township and the other communities nearby, you know, your perspective and thoughts as the Montgomery Township Police Chief, and really just kind of let them behind the curtain for what are you seeing on a daily basis as we deal with this pandemic. So that's the goal here, and I appreciate you, you know, sharing some of your afternoon with me.
Absolutely.
So maybe just we could start. In what ways has the coronavirus pandemic changed your job or the job of a police officer in general?
It's a great question. This is probably the stealthiest of adversaries that we've ever dealt with as far as a law enforcement perspective. You know, we're problem solvers by nature of the job, and anything we ever experience, we just kind of, you know, use our experience or expertise to resolve them. But obviously with this, there's no rule book. There is, you know, this is on the fly learning for not only, you know, many of the professionals that are dealing with this, but including ourselves as well. I mean, we're very fortunate. We're doing our best to follow the advice of our healthcare professionals, but it's more or less use your skill set and ability as far as problem solving and rely upon those healthcare professionals to give you the proper direction to overcome this and, you know, at least manage it from not only the street perspective, but also from a personnel perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, it's a point I've tried to make over and over. You know, I know there's, you know, people like to be, you know, Monday morning quarterbacks on every decision that government makes, but I try to remind them that there's no playbook for this. You know, this isn't like you can just pull it off the shelf and say, all right, well, this is what you do when the coronavirus comes. You know, it's a whole new set of circumstances we're dealing with. So how are the people in Montgomery Township that your officers are you know, running into out on the street? How are they dealing with all this?
I think things are going very well. I mean, initially we had a few bumps in the road like everybody else did when we saw different orders coming through the governor's office. But I think that the community really started to embrace them and, you know, follow those guidelines. I will add, however, you know, in light of the most recent order with the masks, we have seen more people thinking that because they can have masks and they wear masks now, we're seeing traffic is starting to tick up a little bit. And I think there's some concern there that, you know, people have to be understanding that, hey, that mask is for the purposes of entering businesses, but there's still a stay-at-home order that we need to be doing our best to adhere to. So there's a little concern there, but, you know, my big thing is, again, I'm sure you've preached this as well. We can't let our guard down. We've done an awesome job managing it to this point. We just need to, you know, follow it through to the finish line, hopefully, just so we don't have that spike that everyone is talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, the way I've explained it to folks is, you know, you hate to try to hit that inside the park home run and get thrown out at home plate. You know, we got to just take our time and we'll get around the bases for sure. But, you know, we got to make sure we're doing it, you know, in due time. So it's interesting to hear about how the masks may have affected things. So in terms of your officers and your staff, how many officers do you have in Montgomery Township now, just to give people an idea?
We have 36 sworn officers and we have 9 support staff in the department.
So how are they holding up through all this?
They're doing well. You know, I'm really pleased at how they're handling things. I'm taking the opportunity to meet with our staff that are on premises or on site. Of course, being mindful of social distancing, but having an opportunity to sit down and talk to them and see how things are going and see if there's any issues or concerns. As I alluded to earlier, there's no playbook, so this is a matter of, you know, we're looking for some input from the officers, the people that are out there doing the job on a daily basis. But I'm really pleased. I think that they're doing really well. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't thank our citizens of our communities because they've been super supportive. I mean, we've, you know, the random acts of kindness that we've seen have been so nice. it's just nice to know there's a lot of people that are out here trying to do the job that they've been empowered to do, and to recognize us has been awesome. The one thing that I find is a little difficult for our officers that, you know, in your experience, you can relate to this. You know, in law enforcement, we always have tried to, we leave our job at work. And, you know, when we try to, you know, we interact with our families, we try to keep our work life distant, because there's things that you may be involved in or that you see or that you do that aren't the most pleasant things in the world. So officers have done a really good job of compartmentalizing those things that they may see. And the one thing I think that there's some concern and some general issues with the officers is that this is something they cannot just compartmentalize and not take home with them. There's always that fear with them, is that, you know, they're out there dealing with people and then they're bringing things home to their families. So there's some concern there. We have a relatively young department. We have a lot of officers that have young children. So that's definitely in the back of their mind. You can see when they're doing their job or when they're interacting with people.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, you know, are there any special protocols that your officers are employing when they get home? I mean, I know healthcare workers, you know, I was talking to a woman the other day. I mean, you know, she actually gets changed. She gets home from the hospital and she pulls in her garage and she gets changed in the garage before she goes into her house. You know, and you know, she wants to make sure she's not bringing the clothing that she was wearing at the hospital into her home. You know, how have things changed for your officers? Are they doing similar things, or?
We're fortunate in our facility. You know, we have a shower, so some officers have taken to. They come in their, you know, civilian clothes. They put their uniform on. At the end of the day, the uniform gets laundered, and they'll go and shower and then go home. So, you know, that seems to be something that's occurring more often than it ever has before. But you know, just to that point, you know, a lot of, like we said earlier, the protocols in place. We've tried to follow a lot of those CDC guidelines. But, you know, that was one of the issues that we had to confront at one point was, okay, if we do have an officer that has some exposures, getting them to a point of being decontaminated while not contaminating the entire station or their coworkers. So it is, you don't think about it, but it really is, it's almost like a dance. You have to make sure you hit each step to make sure that you're ensuring the welfare of not only your personnel, but their families, so they're not, you know, infecting others as well. But
yeah, I can imagine the challenges there. So, you know, in terms of, you know, obviously you've got a whole department and a whole town that you still need to, you know, patrol and make sure is safe, and you know, responding to fires and burglar alarms and, you know, anything else that might be going on in town. How has this impacted, you know, your just general policing of all these other issues that are day to day for police officers in Montgomery Township?
Obviously, our job by its nature is very people oriented. We've done I think we, and I say our department, but the law enforcement community in Montgomery County has done a really excellent job navigating our responsibilities, you know, implementing protocols to ensure that the job is getting done efficiently as it possibly can, especially involving the court system. As far as us handling the daily operations of the department and the calls for service, nothing has changed. The one thing I would say we're having, you know, and I personally, as the chief of police, am having an issue with is we, as you are well aware, we're very community oriented. When this happened, it pulled the plug on a lot of programs and things that we try to do in our community. I mean, I actually wrote a list down. So we've canceled, to date, we've had to cancel all our DARE instruction in our 3 elementary schools. Our Citizens Police Academy has been canceled. Our Emergency Services Day was canceled. And now we're, you know, we'd be foolhardy if we didn't think that, you know, National Night Out will be possibly affected. It's already been, the date has been moved. Our Junior Police Academy, our Township Autumn Festival, you know, these are big events where we really have the opportunity to really practice our community policing, you know, protocols and our approach to our community. And social media is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful platform. I mean, obviously we're using that today, but nothing takes the place of having that open, you know, contact with the citizens to truly build that relationship with the people that we serve. So that's the one thing I think has been very difficult for us as a department.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And your department does just such a terrific job. I mean, Officer Johnson is everywhere. I mean, that guy, he's unbelievable. And we've partnered with you on a number of events, and the rest of your team there on that community policing front just really do such a terrific job getting out into the community and making sure that, it's a familiar face when you need to talk to a police officer. And we're experiencing that too. And that's part of why I wanted to do these conversations, because right now, I'm not out in the community talking to folks one-on-one as much as I would have been otherwise. And so I'm getting the feedback through social media, as you said, but there's nothing quite like that personal interaction. So that's why I think this is a really important effort that we do to connect you with folks in one way, shape, or form.
Right.
Talk a little bit about, I meant to cover it earlier, and you and I have had some conversations over the last couple of weeks about this. In terms of personal protective equipment and testing, I don't know if your department has needed any testing, or if you've had to deal with any of those issues about getting people tested or trying to track down equipment. I know there's a lot of issues. I spend part of every day trying to run down equipment for folks. How are you faring in those two areas?
We're very fortunate. Our emergency, our fire chief / emergency operations committee person, emergency management personnel, Chief Wegman from the fire department has been really on the forefront of getting us those materials, those PPEs that we're in need of. The nice thing now is, I would tell this to the community, the individuals that see this, we are good. I would suggest highly, if you have those N95 masks or surgical masks and you're looking to donate them, we do have a location here in the township building. It is open 24/7, 365. You can drop them off, and we're getting them to those individuals that would need them. But we're very fortunate as far as the equipment that we needed to gather. We're where we need to be right now. We'll see what happens as this continues to move on in our community. But we were very fortunate to be, have a little vision and procure a lot of stuff before it became a real big issue as far as obtaining these things.
Well, that's great to hear, because I can tell you, I mean, there's a lot of other departments that aren't in that same situation. So, it's great foresight, on somebody's part, and whether it's Bill or somebody else. But that's terrific to hear. Just so folks understand, in general, and I know you guys always are available to help anybody that needs help, but when should people be calling you versus maybe calling other folks in terms of this crisis? What kind of guidance could you give for residents out there?
Over the years, I've always said, when we've talked to different officers, when we've hired them, I said, you are the last line of defense for many people. When they don't know how or know what to do, they're going to call you. I mean, personally, have I gone to, an elderly resident's home because the hot water heater was broken and there was, that's what we do. When you don't know, you call the police. We're very fortunate. We have a lot of services available to us in our community, in the county, in the area, in the township. But ultimately, I still say, if you're not sure, contact the police department. That's what we're here for. We're here 24/7, 365, and we'll work through any issue that you have together, and we'll get you whatever the help is that you may need. That's our job. That's our responsibility. That's our pledge to our community. So, as much as I like to say things are different, they're not. Still pick up the phone, call whenever you need us. As I said to somebody, the manner or the nature by which we may respond to your call may be a little different. Having an officer walk up with a mask on, or having them call you rather than come to your home, that may be something that you see is a little different, but the level of service is still going to be exactly the same as when it was prior to this whole COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, that's a great point you raised. So is that pretty typical now? I mean, the officers, are responding via telephone first. I mean, I'm talking about cases that don't require an urgent, immediate, type of response, but is that typical now?
In some cases, the officers have the discretion now. If they can minimize the contact, they're encouraged to do so. You'll see some officers, the county, through the county dispatch, will have, if it's possible, if we have to go to a home for something of a non-emergency basis, they may request the caller to step out when they see a police officer, just so we can do that open air contact, 6-foot distancing. But yeah, so that's pretty much the way we're rolling. But we are doing a few more phone reports than we've done in years past. Again, every opportunity that we have to engage somebody is, again, it's another way of embracing that community policing mindset. So I try to keep us as normal as we possibly can while adhering to the guidelines of the CDC.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what can people in Montgomery Township do to help, make your job a little bit easier and help keep the community safe?
I mean, obviously, heed the recommendations. We are not the healthcare professionals. The CDC and the Department of Health and the Pennsylvania Department of Health, they're the ones that we're following those regulations and guidelines. I would implore people to do the same thing. As far as what we're requesting of our residents is, obviously, be our eyes and ears. If you see something that doesn't seem right, call. Just because everybody seems to be off and the world seems to have slowed its rotation a little bit, the fact remains is things still do happen, and we need people to be observant as possible. We can't be everywhere all the time, but don't be afraid to give us a call. You're not disturbing us. That's our job. If something doesn't seem right, give us a call. I will always say this: lock your cars. We have had a few theft from vehicles, and obviously, we have seen an increase in some of these internet scams. So just remember, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is not true. But one thing I think is important too is we seem to, as a community, done a really wonderful job of kind of hunkering down and slowing everything down and being a little bit more compassionate. One thing I think would be really important, and I tried to emphasize to people, be aware of your neighbors, especially those that are in poor health or that are elderly. And I'm not advocating that you go up and knock on their door, but give them a phone call, see how they're doing. If there's something that they need, perhaps maybe you can help them or point them in a direction, or if it's something that you would call upon us, we'll do our best to get them what they need. But I think we need to be mindful that while people seem to be shuttered, there's still people that are out there that are in really poor health that we need to be, aware of, and just taking a little time out of our day maybe to make a phone call and say, hey, is everything okay? Can I help you with something?
Yeah, that's great advice. I've really been blown away by the number of folks, and in particular, the example I keep seeing, which is terrific, is folks offering to go shopping for, elderly folks. And it's great. I mean, I see it, on social media and things like that, where, they're like, look, I'll just leave it on your front step. We don't have to have any contact, but I don't want you to have to go out into the stores. And of course, our retailers have responded really well too to provide those separate shopping hours for our team. But it's great. It's great perspective there about looking in after other folks. Any takeaways from this that you think, as you've adapted through this? Do you see any maybe long-term ideas, or kind of looking for a silver lining? Is there anything that we're doing during this period that you might be able to carry through when this is over?
Hey, yeah, I mean it's a loaded question. You hate to say it, but it really is. I mean, the one nice thing about our profession when it comes to law enforcement, there's never really a playbook. There's a general guide because there's so many variables with whatever it is that we're called upon to do. Obviously, this challenged us. I think it challenged every type of service organization, but it's given us an opportunity to build upon those skill sets and abilities, so that if we are, let's just hope this comes to a positive resolution, and we're not talking about this rearing its ugly head in September, but we've come up with some really good practices as a law enforcement profession. And I, knowing not only the law enforcement executives in your district, but the county, the area, the Commonwealth, the country, there's a lot of bright people out there that are coming up with some really positive, proactive ways of dealing with these types of incidents. And while they vary from, large metropolitan areas, Philadelphia, New York, totally different animal. But, you can always glean something from their approaches to, see how you can do something better. And, obviously, the end game is still, we have to do our job. We are here for the public to make people feel safe, feel protected. And, we have to be able to adapt and overcome and do whatever it is that we need to do to give people that sense of security, which is paramount in these trying times.
Yeah, I guess that's a great perspective. I mean, we're always learning, and especially in your profession where you never know what's coming around the next corner. That applies to this big macro issue of a pandemic as well. You just never know what the future is going to hold. So everything you learn over the last several weeks and months coming up here, hopefully you never need to apply it, but if you need to, it'll be in your knowledge bank for use. Well, look, I appreciate you taking the time. I hear from so many people in the community. I know you and your department are just top notch and do a great job. This community certainly, loves our police officers and embraces them, and certainly, wants to do everything we can to help you and support you and your officers and your team here as you work out in the community. So thank you so much for that, and please pass my sentiments and that of the community on to your officers, because we really owe you a huge debt of gratitude here.
Thank you very much. And again, I just want to thank the community, our community out there, for supporting us in our efforts. It's a pleasure to be the chief of this organization in this township, and I'm very proud of the officers that we have and our staff. They're doing a wonderful job, and I appreciate the fact that people are acknowledging that. So thank you very much, and thank you for what you do as well.
No worries. We're lucky to have you. Thanks so much, Chief. I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right.